3 layers eventually. And so what happens in that longitudinal curving that occurs, so again, I'm a disc, all right? And then as I curve, what am I doing to the edges of that sac? I'm bringing them around to the front, where they meet in the front, except for the umbilical cord. And now I'm like a cylinder enclosed in a cylinder sac. All right, so you imagine it slowly pulling the edges of the sac around. So as I fold, I bring the edges of that sac with me, and that whole cavity pulls around as well until it meets in the front. And that's the amniotic sac. All right, the amniotic membrane forming that outer layer, and the ectoderm forming the outer layer of this column that's going to be the developing embryo. Now it's still attached up here, but then as the embryo curves, makes the fetal curve, that sac moves down the front and up the front to meet at the umbilical cord again. So what we end up with is our embryo enclosed in the amniotic sac. Okay. Now you might say, where is the yolk sac? Thank you. The yolk sac is here for a little bit, gets smaller, and then finally disappears. Okay, because humans don't need yolk. Ah, thank you. I was thinking yolk sac in what I meant to write was ectoderm. Okay, so it's that process of longitudinal folding that we'll look at some videos on Tuesday. So here's another view. Just getting the brain around it can take a little bit of thinking, all right? So yolk sac below, amniotic sac above, and here we're starting to form that neural groove, right? So what happens is these cells of the ectoderm, well, as they proliferate, they move from being called ectoderm to epiblast to ectoderm. They start to form a folding, an inward folding. And cells migrate to form a ridge. And then they start to kind of flow down, slide down that ridge. And in between, they kind of separate the hypoblast cells. They fold up, slow down here, and fill in this space. And change to form this third layer. So now we have the trilaminar disc, in which we have ectoderm, which forms skin and nerve, mesoderm, which forms muscle and connective tissue and blood cells, which are connective tissue, and endoderm, which forms primarily the epithelial lining of our various respiratory tract and digestive tract and so on. Okay? The mesentery will also form some of our, like the serous membranes, the visceral pericardium and so on. So this is the image over here that I was illustrating as it moves down and kind of moves through there. Okay? So I'm going to stop here. We'll start with the inner cell mass, and if you have questions on the placental formation. The placenta can be confusing, so go back over it step by step with the pictures. And there aren't really good animations that show all those, but they at least give you that show each of those steps, but they at least show you a visual movie that you can attach those individual steps to. So what we have left on Tuesday will be to see how this folds and comes around and forms this complete cross section. So this is what we're going to stop with on Tuesday. Okay. So we have about 4 slides. You can see there's been a longitudinal fusing. We don't take it all the way through the 9 months and all the organ developments and so on. So we get started to an actual embryo.